Hello Internet, I'm Remote Leg. Let's talk about spaceports, those big orbiting platforms that we like to see above our colonies. They make our colonists feel secure, knowing that the biggest star in the sky is looking over them, protecting their interests. But are they really worth the money? Let's start with a little terminology. I know it's boring, but this bit is short, so bear with me. What you might know as star bases or space stations, distant worlds refers to as spaceports. This game also has orbiting structures called bases. They can be for defence or they can be resorts for tourism. The starbase is generic and lets you build a structure with almost no restrictions. Heck, you can even build it out in deep space. And lastly, we have the working structures that do mining, scanning or research. These are called stations. And that's all we get for bases. Does it matter that we use the proper names? Not really. But this is a tutorial, so I thought we should at least know the correct terms and use them. On to the good stuff. So, why should we build spaceports? Sounds like a no-brainer. Of course we should build spaceports whenever we can, right? In many 4X games we always build spaceports because that's where all our production happens. This is not the case in Distant Worlds. Distant World spaceports have the following functions. They build ships. This is their main function. Planets build colony ships and construction ships. Spaceports build all the other ships. They repair and retrofit ships. They refuel ships. They collect fuel in one place so ships can refuel. They don't generate fuel. Gas mining stations generate fuel. They protect colonies provided they have weapons. Defensive bases can do this too, and they probably do it better. By adding certain components, they can help with income and health of our people. So, adding a commerce centre to our spaceport increases trade revenue. Adding a medical centre improves the health and happiness of our colonists. Adding a recreation centre improves the happiness of our colonists. I don't put research labs on my spaceports, so they don't help in that regard. I do put defences on my larger ports because they're too valuable to lose, but I rely on defensive bases or ships as my main line of defence. Of course, we want those boosts to commerce and happiness, so perhaps a tiny specialist structure is in order, just to put those components into orbit above our colonies. We can use a starbase design for this. See this design for such a base? The Bare Bones Mark I. It has the bare minimum for power and habitation to support the commerce and recreation components. Now, see this design for the same thing using the small spaceport chassis. The required addition of a manufacturing yard and plants has pushed the size up so much that we need more habitation and energy collection components. Also, see how the initial cost and ongoing maintenance of Bare Bones is a little over half the cost for the spaceport version. If we have a small spaceport, we can upgrade it to a medium or a large spaceport later. There's no need to demolish the small one first. We can just retrofit. The names small, medium, large are just labels. There is no reason why our small spaceport can't be bigger than our large spaceport. It's just less confusing if we stick to some sort of convention. Personally, I make my small spaceport the one I build to get colonies up and running. Therefore, I design it to be dirt cheap with just the essentials for a struggling colony. It's just a steel frame with a bucket where freighters can drop off resources and my constructors can refuel. Medium spaceports are the ones I want on large, established colonies that are not near the front line. They don't need many weapons, but I will use them to build ships that will then make the long journey to the front line of my empire. The large spaceports are on the front line. They're often in contested systems. They get lots of weapons and armour, and their main job is to refuel and repair our war fleets. I often supplement their protection with defensive bases. There it is, 3 designs to keep things simple. I don't think we need more than that. Of course, almost every colony gets a bare bones starbase like the one we built earlier. It just orbits the planet like a little Sputnik, raining health and happiness on our colonists below. The downside of spaceports is maintenance. Spaceports are expensive, and the bigger ones come with a hefty maintenance cost. Every year we're going to be shelling out to keep these things in the sky. If we build too many too soon, we can cripple our economy. I don't usually put spaceports at low quality colonies. If I do, it's always a small, cheap one. Poor quality colonies are always built for a specific reason, usually to spread influence so we can colonize further. A space station may not be appropriate. If I'm building a spaceport at all, I usually start with a small one, get it up quickly so we can start collecting resources from freighters. If we're building in a contested war hotspot, we are going to need a large spaceport. Getting it built might be a problem, so we're going to need a battle fleet in orbit to protect the construction project. Once the port is built, we can relax a little and build a few defensive bases to add to the intimidation level. As the front line moves forward, consider upgrading large spaceports to medium or even small ones. This reduces maintenance costs on ports with lots of weaponry that they no longer need. Perhaps demolish some of the defensive bases to further reduce the maintenance costs, but I like to leave at least one defensive base for protection. The pirates have a habit of sending out lone frigates that travel long distances to attack soft targets. There's nothing worse than getting a message that an undefended port deep in our own territory is under attack and we have no warships nearby. Here's one last tip. Image scaling. We can even change this after the design has been built, even though the game says we can't. This defines the size of our spaceport as it appears on the screen. It's simply cosmetic, but it can make our port easier to see when there's a traffic jam of ships trying to drop off resources, refuel, collect passengers, repair, refit, and just generally hang about the spaceport getting in the way. There, isn't that easy to see? It's certainly easier to click on when we're trying to select it. Okay, perhaps it doesn't need to be quite that big. It's up to you how much you want to add.